Besides their accent, what's one way you know a tourist is American? When visiting Paris, my wife and I learned they don't seat you at restaurants. You just walk in and sit down at an available table. We figured it out after standing around at the entrance a few times. Then we started noticing other American tourists doing the same. While in Korea, I was casually talking to a friend on the bus in regular speaking voice. Not even a minute later, the lady in front of us turns around in her seat and says very casually, "Please calm down." I guess American volume is noticeably louder. Not everyone, but in general if you are at a restaurant or a bar you immediately can hear who's American. When they introduce themselves they never say they're from America, mostly the state city they're from. Saying hi, how are you to the barista, servers, retail workers. My country doesn't quite have that culture, so I find it really sweet. The absolute fearlessness of asking anyone on the street about anything. Being called African American while living in the Netherlands. A black mate of mine from London was once haltingly referred to as a British African American by a tourist. Went to Russia once, and they knew because I smiled too much. Those pearly whites are a one-way ticket to the gulag. My dad, a born and raised Egyptian, is a proud American immigrant. When we go to visit family in Egypt he wears cargo shorts, a Hawaii shirt, a hat with Nick on it, and speaks English to everyone even though he speaks perfect Egyptian Arabic. When I went to Italy with a friend, I couldn't figure out why everyone greeted me in English before I said a word. I don't wear running shoes outside of the gym. I dress pretty posh. I can't remember the last time I owned a baseball cap. And I try to have a basic grasp on the local language. How can they tell I'm American? My friend told me, it's because you're smiling at them. Some of you house are way more polite than expected. Whenever I hear someone say mom, I know they're American. Like one time I was in Lidl's and there was an American family asking someone who worked there if they sold cell phones, and when the woman said they didn't they were all, "Oh okay. Thank you for your time mom. Have a great day," which is much more cheery than the average Scot. Till we have a monopoly on baseball caps. Trying to interact with strangers in public areas. Most American tourists I've come across are really friendly and talkative. They always seem to be genuinely stoked to be here, haha. They get amazed by old things. Girlfriend used to work on a farm and an estate in the UK, and would often have Americans in awe of the old buildings. One once said some of these buildings are older than my country. That's why we find it interesting, to be honest. And my mom is from England, so we've visited the UK constantly since I was a kid. I still find the old buildings really interesting. If you see an American in Japan, they will frantically look for public trash cans. The absence of trash receptacle is something unfounded in the US, and we become confused at the idea of having to hold it for extended periods of time. I lived in Japan when the World Cup was there in 2002. There were plentiful trash cans before the World Cup, not as many as in American cities, but quite a few. But a few weeks before the games began, they pulled out a substantial number of trash cans out of terrorism and hooliganism concerns. They never came back. It was really disconcerting. Asking for the restroom. I mean, obviously the accent was then heard too, but in my little village in Scotland I was in the pub and a woman politely asked the barman where the restrooms were. He didn't know WTF she was on about, and then it obviously clicked. "Ye mean the toilet?" And it's juiced back her. Tipping. Americans will try to tip everyone. Even in countries where tipping isn't a thing is considered a serious insult. I'm half Japanese and I live in Japan. Basically, we automatically assume any white person is American. They're looking for a store open at like 11 PM, even if in most European countries stores close at like 7 to 8 PM. And Americans will be wearing sneakers. Extra ice in their drinks. This one is funny to me just because as a dual citizen US dad UK mum, I see both sides. Americans are obsessed with ice, but at the same time Brits seem to miss the benefits of it. First time I took my wife to England she was like, "WTF is the deal with Brits and no ice? Or if they actually give you ice, it's one cube lol." They are very outspoken. At my local aquarium the other day I heard a lady very loudly say, "Have the penguins gone to bed?" Can we not see them? Yeah, all the penguins have gone to bed, y'all missed them. Oh, typical southern attitude. I live in the south, this is common. I hear that us Americans can easily be spotted in the airport by the fact usually we're used to taking off our shoes and baseball caps and shorts. I'll make sure to bring my finest collection of snapback trucker hats with me to Europe on my vacation this summer. Baseball caps, university spirit wear, cargo shorts, free t-shirts from events with ads and text all over them, and for the older Americans they always seem to just kinda stand in the middle of everything looking around. Holy crap, that's such an incredibly accurate description of us in the wild. I was at a beach where music was playing and Sweet Caroline came on. I told my sister, we are both Hispanic, but I live in the US. Hey, if you are wondering who here is from the US, you are about to find out. 10 seconds later, PAPA. British people love that song. Confidence. I have never seen someone walk so confidently in the wrong direction like an American can. You're dang right we will. In Scotland, baseball cap, bum bag, shorts and sandals halfway up Ben Nevis. As an American, I'm told we're loud. Apparently, where my in-laws live in Brazil, they consider us relatively quiet, which is nice. Confused cause most of this stuff applies to me and I'm from the UK. Nobody actually noticed when I was in the US till I opened my mouth. Americans recognize other Americans in most countries because they smile at strangers on the street. Having conversations with family at a level appropriate to a rock concert. Hey Sandra, would ya look at this? To quote from my second highest comment to date, I was traveling in Bali, Indonesia and caught my reflection in the window of a storefront. Big old white guy, 6 feet 4 inches, 230 plus lbs. Bright blue and orange Hawaiian shirt, shorts, farmer's tan, USS New Orleans LPH 11 bow cap, and sandals with black socks. I was carrying a carved elephant statuette. It was 11 AM, and I was drunk. Y'all. Their Canadian flag patch is sewn on upside down. Okay, so I got off the train in Ghent, Belgium and was super hungry, so decided to get a muffin at the coffee stand. The nice cashier said something to me in Flemish and I answered in German. I'd been in Germany the past couple of weeks and it just kind of naturally popped out. He responded in broken German, including a bunch of hand waving and pointing and random gestures. We successfully completed our transaction and he turned to the guy making the coffee and said, in entirely unaccented American English, "Hey, could you hand me that?" I looked at him and said, "You know, actually I'm an American and speak fairly fluent English." He stared at me for a second and said, "That's not funny. It actually really was." This is going to sound made up just because of how ridiculous this is. I wouldn't believe it myself hadn't I have seen this happen myself. Back when I lived in Poland, there was a couple standing in front of me in the line at a McDonald's who were outraged that McDonald's didn't accept US dollars as a form of payment. But McDonald's is American. Actual quote from the guy. Just a reminder, this was in Poland. I'm not 100% sure but I think they were American. If they buy peanut butter, it sounds very weird, but everyone who buys peanut butter where I work turns out to be American. When they comment about the driving. It's 80 degrees out there. How many miles? That's 2 pounds? Honestly, it really isn't their fault. Imagine coming to America and saying it's 30 degrees Celsius. I was in France once in a very famous and classy art gallery and saw a wildly overweight sweaty man with a shirt on that reads something like "Vegetarians are just bad hunters" or something along those lines, with a huge picture of a dinosaur. I turned to my friend and said, "That's definitely an American." Sure enough, he then called his kids over in a very southern twang and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It would have been funnier if he'd called his kids over in flawless Parisian French. Absolutely no problem with long car bus drives. Standing on a street in Beijing and a woman started waving from across the street, so I waved back. Then she shouted, "Good to see another American," and I shouted back, "I'm from New Zealand." She gave an exaggerated shrug and kept walking. Beige cargo shorts and very white legs. I don't have much experience in foreign countries as an American, but I heard we measure distances in time. X. It is 4 miles to our destination versus it takes 7 minutes to our destination. That's because if you live any American city, I'm in the Seattle area, you know that actual distance doesn't have jack crap to do with how long it'll take to get somewhere. The way they like to say, oh, you call this X, we call that Y in America, or something along those lines. The only one of those that I've heard that baffles me is lemonade. Sprite is not lemonade, you can't tell me otherwise, and I think you are wrong and your life is wrong. You have been visited by the wealth rat. Subscribe in 12 seconds and he will share his wealth with you. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.